All right, let's dive into a case that seems to just defy all logic. It all starts with a dead body and a locked door, but where it goes from there, well, that's the real enigma.
This is the classic paradox, right? The cornerstone of every impossible crime story. But for the New York City Police Department, in the case of Daniel Harris, this wasn't some riddle in a book. It was a completely baffling reality.
So our story kicks off late one night, right in the heart of the city. The victim was a successful businessman named Daniel Harris. He was found inside his 10th floor apartment, a place that you'd think would be a fortress. But as the police were about to find out, its security was actually part of the problem.
So when the police finally have to break down the door, they find Harris. He's dead, and the coroner later confirms it was a very potent poison. But everything about the scene just screamed one thing. The door was bolted from the inside, every single window was sealed tight, and there wasn't a single sign of a break-in. At first glance, it really looked like a tragic suicide.
But then, this one text message, sent by Harris to a friend at 11:45 p.m., just blew that suicide theory completely out of the water. This wasn't a suicide, this was murder. So if someone else was in that room, how did they get in? And maybe more importantly, how in the world did they get out?
And this is where investigators hit a brick wall. On one hand, you have Harris's own words confirming there was a killer in the room with him. But on the other hand, a full review of all the security footage, covering the only ways in or out, the elevators and the stairwells, showed absolutely nothing. Nobody came and nobody left. So how could both of those things possibly be true?
The case was pretty much at a dead end, but a fresh pair of eyes on the crime scene uncovered one tiny detail that everyone else had missed. A clue that was about to blow the whole secret of the killer's path wide open.
So a really observant officer spots this super faint scratch on the floor, right near the balcony. He looks out and sees that the building next door is incredibly close. We're talking just a 6-foot gap. Well, that led them to search the roof of that other building. And sure enough, there it was, a coiled-up rope and a single glove. All of a sudden, an impossible theory started to look very, very possible. Armed with these clues, the investigators could finally start piecing together exactly how the killer pulled off the impossible. The puzzle of the locked room was about to be solved.
Okay, here's how they did it. The killer rappelled down from the roof next door and slipped right onto Harris's balcony. They got inside, administered the poison, and then got out the exact same way they came in. But the final touch, this was genius. After closing the door, they slid a thin, stiff wire through that tiny gap at the bottom and managed to skillfully flip the internal bolt, locking the door from the outside. The room wasn't locked by someone inside, it was locked by a ghost on the outside.
So, case closed, right? The how was solved. The mystery of the locked room was finally explained. The investigators had this perfect theory until the final forensic and investigative reports landed on their desks. And one small detail turned a solved case into an even deeper mystery.
Suddenly the question wasn't how the killer got in and out anymore. The new mystery was about time itself. It was about the final 13 minutes of Daniel Harris's life.
The investigative report was crystal clear on this. That whole complex operation, setting up the rope, descending, getting into the apartment, the murder itself, escaping, and then locking the door with a wire, that entire sequence would take an expert a bare minimum of 15 minutes.
But then came the absolute bombshell from the forensic report. The coroner placed Daniel Harris's time of death at exactly 11:47 p.m. Now remember that text message? He sent it at 11:45 p.m. That's a gap of only 2 minutes.
So this timeline reveals the brand new puzzle. At 11:45, Harris knows someone is in the room with him. By 11:47, he's dead. So the murder itself happened in just 2 minutes. But we know the whole operation required at least 15. This leaves 13 minutes just completely unaccounted for.
So we're left with this. We know how the killer got in and out. We solved that part. But we have no idea what they were doing inside that apartment for 13 minutes before Daniel Harris even knew they were there. Was the killer hiding? Were they preparing something, or was something else happening entirely? The mystery of the locked room was solved, only to be replaced by the enigma of the 13 minutes. And that's a question that, to this day, has never been answered.